Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every morning by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking. Get those questions in. We'll get to those here in just a little bit. And guys, we're 87 days away from football, so the countdown is on, slowly but surely, very slowly. But let's get to the news of the day. Which
hold on, Blake. Did
What?
you buy a ranch or are you just wearing the hat today?
Hey, I can't help Bob Laxey more than both of y'all. I'm sorry, I can't help that.
Okay.
Maybe one day y'all get lucky and get one. But here we go. Let's talk recruiting for a little bit. Jimmy, what's the latest?
Yeah, so Dallas Wilson, 4-star wide receiver out of Tampa Tech High, is scheduled to be on campus today for an unofficial visit. We broke that news last night. This is one of the top receiver prospects in the country. And for those that followed on Texas football or on texasfootball.com, you guys know that we talked about this. Jeff Banks went by the school in May during spring practice, the morning after him and Kenny Baker were at Port Charlotte to see Myron Charles, and spent 3 hours at the school. So this is a guy that Texas obviously feels like he's right there in that group with that top tier of wide receivers for Texas. And that top tier is, let's be clear, that top tier is DeCorian Moore, who's obviously super freak, 1A. And then you have Jamie French, you have Khalil Lockett, you have Dallas Wilson, you have Kelshawn Johnson. I mean, those guys are, I think, the cut above. And then you have Dalen McCutcheon, you have Andrew Marsh as well. You have Marcus Harris, who I just don't see Marcus Harris at Texas. I think that first group is where Texas is going after, but they've been working to get Dallas Wilson on campus. He is 6'3", 190 pounds, super smooth there. You can see he's got great hands, great long, big catch radius, a smooth mover, really good body control, just a fluid player, Bobby. He's an Oregon commitment who's visiting Miami, Florida, and then Oregon. He may even visit FSU, but he is one of the top receivers in the country. And this goes to what we've been talking about. Look, Sark recruits through the whistle. They want as many shots on goal with the best players in the country as they can get. And getting Dallas Wilson on campus, assuming that follows through and that does happen as it's scheduled today, that's a big one for Texas. Doesn't mean he's ahead of the other guys. It just means they have a chance to see if they can build a relationship here and see where this recruitment can go. And Texas, again, recruiting the best players in the country they can find at every position and doing their best to get them on campus. And, Bobby, as we've mentioned before, had you not beat Alabama, won the Big 12, and gone to the college football playoff, this kid probably doesn't visit. I mean, that's kind of the difference. We saw the 26 elite camp kids. It was a good group. Texas extended the double-digit offers, and then this getting these kids on campus. I mean, somebody asked about Josh Petty. What happened with Josh Petty, offensive tackle in Georgia? Texas just wasn't able to work one of those two official visit weekends they wanted, June 14th through 16th or 21st through 23rd. Combined with Texas has confidence, they're in good spots, 50-50 spots. I mean, they lead for John Mills. They're right there with Fasusi. Got a shot at Lamont Rogers. Nick Brooks got a shot at him. So I think it just became an issue of, okay, these guys are more invested than Texas. We can get them in on the weekends we want to versus somebody that we're trying to fight and get him to cancel visits, schools that he may be more interested in. So I think that's what happened with Josh Petty, combination of those things. And LL saying he heard the term recruit through the whistle on another podcast. Well, tell them, yes, they can use our term that we started here. I'm not going to make him say. I'm not going to make him say my name with it.
Hey, Jerry, the thing about Dallas Wilson that's interesting is he fits that category of elite player that no matter where he's committed, they're going to try to get to. Yeah. Especially, and what it also reemphasizes is this, and you and I know this. We've been talking about, are they going to get 3 5-stars? And everybody was talking about Moore, DeCorian Moore, Khalil Lockett, and Jamie French. Well, Steve Sarkisian's recruiting other guys too.
Yeah.
And so you got to remember that. I mean, nothing's set in stone like that. And so that's a big deal. A lot of people talk about beat OU. The Horns take on Oklahoma tonight at 7:00 in the first game of a 3-game series, best of 3 against OU for the national title in softball. Mike White was on with us yesterday talking about the ladies and just what they've done so far. They have not allowed a run in 3 games in the College World Series. Oklahoma won a tremendous comeback yesterday against Florida, hitting a home run in extra innings to make it to the national title series. So these 2 guys are going to slug it out tonight, starting at 7 p.m. Jerry, going back to recruiting as well, I had a question for you. Texas currently has 7 guys scheduled for this weekend, but we're hearing one of them may be not be coming right now. And I know you're tracking that. That's Dorian Brew, the defensive back out of Conroe. What is the latest on that, and what does it mean if the Longhorns are unable to get him in?
Yeah, I think we'll see. I mean, he may go to USC this weekend. We don't know if that means Texas just been bumped back, if they bump back the visit a week or 2. We're trying to find out the real particulars on that. So possibility he's at USC this weekend, not Texas. We'll see. By the way, if you guys see, Jareth Mulholland said somebody's saying that Fasusi still favored to Texas. I still think it comes down to Texas and Texas A&M. I think Texas has the longest standing relationship there and is the best position, but it's recruiting. We'll see what happens in June. But by the way, if y'all see me start to sweat, I'm at Fort Bend Marshall High School. Athletic period started. I'm in a press box that has no AC. And there is a wasp buzzing around. So if I got stung on live YouTube, that'll be fun. A lot of fun. And Blake asked if I'm allergic. I said, I don't know. I guess we're going to find out.
I thought you were in DKR. That background makes you look like you're in DKR, not Fort Bend Marshall, Jerry.
I couldn't find a Fort Bend Marshall practice field background for the show.
Oh, man. Well, more recruiting stuff to talk about. But before we get to that, Bobby, can you tell folks out there about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm?
Yeah, absolutely. Adam Lowy has been a sponsor of On Texas Football almost from the outset. We really appreciate his consistency in working with us. Thank you, Adam. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, ATV accident, or motorcycle and think you might be due compensation, reach out to Adam and his firm for a free consultation. They'll let you know whether or not they think you might be due some money. Again, reach out to them, LowyLawFirm.com, 20-plus years experience in and around Austin and the state of Texas. Again, LowyLawFirm.com. Thanks, Adam, for your sponsorship.
All right, guys. And like I said, we're going to talk more recruiting here. And I actually want to use Glenn Keller's comments to circle back because I know you got some defensive tackle stuff to talk about. He says, I'm certainly not going to complain about highly ranked wide receivers, but man, it sure would be nice to get the same level of defensive tackles in. So let's start with Myron Charles. What's the latest there? What all you got on that front?
Yeah, I think Myron Charles will be visiting this weekend officially. FSU continues to have confidence there. And when I was at Port Charlotte in mid-May, here you see Myron Charles really raw, but has so much upside with him. I mean, 6'4", 290, long arms, 80-inch wingspan, 10-inch hands. He has all the details. But he's going to come in this weekend. Along with Javion Hilson, an edge prospect from Cocoa, Florida, the other coast of Florida, committed to FSU. Those are the 2 Sunshine State kids in this weekend. But Myron Charles, really, he was at Florida last weekend, and everything seems to be coming down the more FSU-Texas battle. Jeff Banks and Kenny Baker working that recruitment. The question is, with visits scheduled to Florida, which he's already been on, Miami and FSU, how realistic is it he's actually going to leave the state? Right now, Texas the only school that has a shot at that as far as official visits go. But he did like his visit to Texas, and obviously a number of his family members will be in Austin this weekend, along with Josiah Sharma from the West Coast at Folsom, California. We've had some questions here this morning about Brandon Brown, so I'll mix in the Brandon Brown, Zion Williams talk. Now, Brandon Brown, if you weren't on the podcast or weren't here yesterday, Sarkisian Kenny Baker spoke with Brandon Brown, his mom, older brother, a couple other key people in his circle Monday. The official visits continue. Brandon Brown will be at Tennessee this weekend, Texas the 14th through 16th, and probably Miami the 21st through 23rd. on Zion Williams. He had a call with Sark and Kenny Baker, Zion and the mom. I believe that was Monday evening. So Texas is going to get that official visit. Zion will announce his decision July 4th. He told me going into the visit, I think the wasp just buzzed in front of my face, by the way, that it's LSU 1, Texas 2 remains the same. I think LSU had a great visit with him. If people are asking, we said this months ago, his girlfriend's going to LSU. We kind of broke that news here. So we'll see what happens with those guys. But Steve Sarkisian, more than personally invested in these recruitments, been on the phone with both parents. Official visits remain scheduled. And then we'll see Kevin Wynn. I actually touched base with Kevin Wynn, the 4-star defensive lineman out of Greene County, Greensboro, Georgia. He was at Georgia last weekend. He goes to South Carolina this weekend, Texas the 14th through 16th, FSU the 21st through 23rd, who had been the leader much of March. And we talked about this, Bobby. Georgia's really turning up the heat with Kevin Wynn now. And we talked about this. We predicted this as soon as that Texas official visit popped on the radar. Georgia, they can stomach losing a 4-star defensive lineman from in-state to FSU. When that Texas visit pops up, that's a little different game. Like last year with Daniel Calhoun, it came down to Georgia and Texas. And somebody called me and said, you don't have to worry about it. That kid ain't going to Texas. It's not going to happen. And I was like, ooh, okay, there you go. Kevin Wynn, I'm not hearing the same thing, but Georgia, because that kid's 40 miles from Athens, they are actually now going to put up a fight on this recruitment a little bit more than they were when it looked like it was FSU or South Carolina.
And a couple of recruiting questions real quick. This one from Philip Barber says, convince me we're not scrambling at defensive back and defensive line.
Oh, definitely not scrambling at D-line. I mean, they have their guys. They have that top tier of guys, and they're all officially visiting. Texas did extend an offer yesterday to a kid from Berlin, Germany, who's now at Rancho Santa Margarita. But look, he's a legit prospect. He is a guy that's in his 3rd year playing organized football. This will be his 2nd year playing in the States. He's 6'4", 275. And this is not for people who are saying, hey, Texas offered this guy. It's not looking good. Well, he just went and camped at Georgia, got offered. They tried to schedule him for an official visit. Alabama, the same. Florida, the same. Now he's on his way to Ohio State. Oregon, trying to set him up for an official visit. So just because you see an offer doesn't mean, oh, Texas, they're losing out on guys. Well, this guy just happens to be a really talented developmental prospect that these programs are looking at. And Pete Kwiatkowski was by the school of Jamal. It's JJ Hahn is his name, but he has a hyphenated 2-word first name. But PK was by the school, Rancho Santa Margarita, in May. Took some video, brought that back to Kenny Baker. I talked to the kid yesterday. He kind of told me the story. PK has a long-standing relationship with that coaching staff from his days at Washington. So that's just a kid that, look, everybody's starting to offer. They're picking up on, okay, this guy's got a chance to be really good. Now that they went out and saw him being his 2nd year in college, or 2nd year of high school football in organized football in the state. So just because Texas makes an offer like that doesn't mean it's a stretch or means things are going bad. I think they're on the guys on the D-line. They just have to walk away with 3 of those guys. I mean, that's the reality. Can you win 3 battles, national battles, when you're talking Josiah Sharma, Alabama, Texas? Zion Williams is LSU, Texas. Brandon Brown will end up LSU, Texas, unless Miami does something drastic. Then you go down that list. I mean, of guys. Kevin Wynn, it's going to be FSU, Georgia, Texas, South Carolina. South Carolina's done a good job with the culinary part, which is he wants to be a chef. But they're national battles on the defensive line. Bobby, Myron Charles, FSU, Miami, Florida. You're battling if you're Texas, but really FSU on a kid in Port Charlotte, Florida. So how many of those can you actually win is the question. They're on the right guys. Now it comes down to closing a couple, 3 out.
I also have a little bit of team news to divulge today, talking to some folks in and around the team. 2 guys early on that seem to have come in. This is very, very early now, but it continued to run from really late spring ball into this summer that, it's just very early. 2 guys, Justice Finkley and Darian Gillette, have both come in ready to go. apparently, according to some people behind the scenes there in Austin. Excited about those two guys because one of the guys that's one of the more forgotten players on the Texas team right now, in my opinion, is Justice Finkley. We talk about all the new faces, whether it's Trey Moore, Colin Simmons, and then we talk about Ethan Burke and Colton Vossick even coming on. A lot of times we forget and don't mention Justice Finkley, but don't forget about him. He may be a key player for Texas before this season's over if he keeps up the way he's going right now. He came in ready to work, Jerry, but I'm told he's doubled down a little bit on that effort, and he could get some value out of that. Darian Gillette, of course, is one of those guys that Texas was hoping would come on and mature into an off-ball linebacker as opposed to a edge rusher, right, Jerry?
Yeah.
Well, he came in, but he was hurt. I mean, he had a torn ACL. So what's he supposed to do? Now, apparently, that's moving in the right direction. Let's see how that goes. But early on, those are a couple guys' names to watch out for this summer, at least.
Summer workouts underway. I've heard a lot of good reports. I mean, I don't think guys took the month of May off, and we off completely from working out, taking care of their nutrition, all that. I think these guys remain focused. They got their vacations in, their time in, but I mean, there were a lot of photos posted of guys getting their workouts in when they went back home. So I think these guys are ready. I think this is a motivated football team this year. I really do. I think it's a really good year to be Steve Sarkisian as the head coach at Texas. And I know it sounds like a broken record because when you almost climb the mountaintop, whether that's the Texas kids back or whether that's the Isaiah Bond and Nye Black, and you don't quite get there, it's a good team to coach, especially those guys that are in their last year of college football. They're motivated, one, to see if they can get the thing done, get back to the playoffs, see if they can get it done, and two, with a bunch of guys, maybe up to 12 guys that could be draft picks off this team, counting the guys that'll leave early. So there's a lot of motivation for this team, a lot of motivation for this coaching staff. And I think one thing I'm watching is how the involvement of Johnny Nansen on the defensive side. I think he's going to be more involved from a schematical standpoint than maybe we talk about right now. Hey, Bobby, here's a good question for you real quick, because you actually brought this up a couple of years ago. Would y'all be against changing 5-star to plus to 6-star in recruiting rankings? You and I had a conversation about this 2 years ago.
I actually suggested it.
I know.
I mean, that's where I was going, because it's ridiculous that 5-star plus. I was all about that. And I will say this: people don't realize this. Back in the day at Rivals, when it was first starting, I actually was the guy that was in the room when we decided it would be stars instead of diamonds. I'm going to let you. Could have been this whole vernacular. Y'all don't remember this, but 30 years ago, there was no such thing as 5 stars. It was blue chip, red chip, and all this other stuff. Well, you couldn't really see that on a website. And so we started looking at diamonds and stars. And diamonds didn't look right either. And stars, you could easily count. They were a little bit different color. So we went with stars. So that is truly the genesis of why people are called stars. Now, obviously, there were hotel chains that were ranked by stars, and other things that ranked by stars, including generals. And that is why ultimately they did not go with 6 stars for the consensus 5-star prospects, is because generals only go up to 5 stars. So they didn't want to go further than that, I guess is the best way to put it. But I think that it's better than 5-star plus, which really means nothing.
Here's a question.
I had my say.
No, Bobby, here's the question. In our years in the business, what does a 6-star look like? Who would have been a 6-star? Vince Young? Adrian Peterson?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about that level. Very few. Jadeveon Clowney out of high school would have been. He just doesn't love football to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, you're talking a very select few guys. And there may not be one in every class.
No doubt. I just look. There are now, because what they're doing is, if you're a consensus 5-star across all services, They're giving you that little
Plus.
consensus 5-star or 5-star plus or whatever. And that's all well and good. But still, there's only like 5 guys a year that are just super freaks.
Yeah.
At most, right? To your point about the Vince Youngs or Adrian Petersons or Arch Mannings.
Julius Peppers.
Anthony Hill. I mean, that to me is in that category. So, you know, I feel like that's Ryan Wingo may as well be in that category. So all of that to say that I have no problem with that if that would have been the way that people would have chosen. At 6 Longhorns is better.
I was actually going to suggest that maybe that's what we do. So
yeah. Hey, let's go to we got a special guest again this morning. This is our friend Dr. Brett Wilkinson from Direct_Cup Dates. Brett, the Longhorns, the last time we talked to you, we're looking pretty darn good in the Directors Cup outcome. Then they went and beat Stanford in softball on over the weekend, and then they went and won the women's rowing title outright over, guess who? Stanford. You had some interesting things to say about that on your Twitter, so we thought we'd bring you back in. We've been tracking the Directors Cup thanks to people like yourself that have kept up with us a little bit, and now that Texas seems to be winning them a little bit. Give us the latest update, and then Blake has a visual graphic for people to see where things stand as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me on once again. And I got to say, winning is fun. I wouldn't be tracking this like I am if Texas wasn't winning these. So, you know, I think probably the Stanford fans and Texas fans are the two that are most tuned into the Cup. You know, Florida's snuck into the top 10 there. They've been in the top 10 every year, so they've had a lot of success, but they haven't won one. North Carolina's in the top 10. They won the very first one, but they haven't been able to win since. So, yeah, definitely a lot of Stanford and Texas fans that are most interested in the Directors Cup right now.
Well, Texas still behind Stanford at this point, though. I thought there was some thought that Texas might have, quote unquote, clinched it with the win in softball and the win in rowing. What's the situation, and give us kind of the breakdown mathematically of what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. So when we talked a couple Saturdays ago, you know, I mentioned Stanford needed a lot of big dominoes to fall in their favor. And there really hasn't been much change either way for Texas or Stanford. You know, a few results here or there that haven't met expectations, but we're talking about, you know, small nicks and cuts, no major blows. And like you said, so some of the last opportunities for Stanford to cut into Texas's projected lead really came this past weekend. Rowing, you know, if Stanford knocks off Texas in rowing, which if you watch that final race between the two, that was for all the marbles, and it was a close race. So, you know, just two behemoths in rowing, just going after one another, and Texas came out on top. And then, you know, Texas had a tough draw in softball. To open it up as the 1 seed, and you get the benefit of facing off against the best pitcher in the nation. You know, that could have gone south for Texas, and that was maybe Stanford's opportunity to knock Texas down and earn some more points. And, you know, sure enough, Texas beats Kennedy twice, and that doesn't happen. So that result's going to go more in Texas's favor than it is Stanford. So Texas has remained in a really strong position. Now you ask, okay, they're still behind. They're still not in the lead. Well, right now, Texas still has a completely empty spot on the scorecard. That's going to get filled up this weekend with track and field. These rankings that I'm showing here now, they do include points from softball and baseball. So even though those tournaments are going on, it's just that time of the year that I need to throw those on. So that people kind of understand where this truly sits. So Texas right now has one empty spot on their scorecard. And then one score that Texas has is a 28 from women's cross country. That's going to be surpassed by track and field. So this weekend, when track and field wraps up, Texas is going to make a big jump up in the points, you know, 150 points or so. And that's what's going to allow Texas to potentially pass Stanford as long as they get the good results in track and field.
So basically, Texas has a 0 right now. Track and field, what do the men and women have to do to score enough here? Like, do they have to finish in the top 10, top 20, top 5? What do they have to do? Because that's really what we're going to be looking at here.
Yeah. That's what it comes down to. And of course, we always have to keep our eye on Stanford. Their men's team isn't going to score high enough. They might not score any points. They have one runner for their men. He's an NCAA champion. He won the 5K and the 10K last year. But this year, he's like the 10th seeded runner in the 10K. I don't know if he's injured or what's been going on with him this year. But so we don't expect Stanford's men's track to make an impact. They have 6 runners who qualified for women's track. Maybe 2 or 3 of those are expected to score points. That's most likely not going to be enough to impact Stanford's score. So I think Stanford's score is pretty much set. So then when you look at what Texas needs to do, really they need to add about 57 points to their total. You have to factor in, we're taking away 28 and then adding the track and field scores on top of that. So as long as both the men and women's track teams score about 50 points for track, which they're ranked to definitely do that, it should be enough for Texas to jump in front.
So for example, what is a 50-point score for a track and field finish? Is it top 15, top 20, top 10? What is that total that Texas would need to get?
Yeah, as long as both teams finish in the top 30, they should be fine.
Wow. That's a wide berth. That's a wide berth.
It is.
Yeah.
Hey, Brett, we had a question from our chat. If Tennessee won the national championship in college baseball, what's their ceiling? Could they pass Stanford for 2 if things kind of play out this way?
So I've looked at that, and a lot of people have wondered. It doesn't seem feasible.
Okay.
Tennessee had a chance. I think when Bobby and I were talking a couple Saturdays ago, I mentioned Tennessee might actually finish second. Their softball team didn't make as deep of a run as they needed. Of course, their baseball team is the 1 seed, and they're in the supers and looking strong. In order to pass Stanford, they would have to place 3rd in both men's and women's track and field. I think they're both ranked. I think they're ranked 10th and 12th in track and field. So to make that jump from 10th and 12th all the way up to top 3 usually isn't feasible in track and field. Those teams at the top are so stacked. So it would take a big effort in track and field for Tennessee, and they would have to win it all in baseball, which you're the 1 seed, but we know how tough that is to pull off the victory. So I don't think Tennessee is going to pass them. It's going to be close, and they're definitely going to be in 3rd place solidly, but I don't think they can pass Stanford.
Mike, I have a second follow-up question, and it may be tough to answer, but you study this. When Texas moves to the SEC in July, is it going to be more difficult for them to continue to be on top, just from the conference itself and some of the strengths in that conference, or do you think they still have the same strengths no matter what conference they play in?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we'll have to see, right? All of the points come from NCAA championships. So, people always ask, did we get points for winning this conference championship? The conferences, that part of it doesn't play in. So as Texas moves to the SEC, the only place that I could see that impacting Texas negatively is if they're up against tougher baseball competition, let's say, and they don't make the tournament because the competition's so much tougher, then they lose out on those points. So did Texas have an easier path in certain sports to making the postseason in the Big 12 versus the SEC? That could be the impact there. The other big thing to watch is with Stanford moving to their ACC now, right?
Yeah.
What does that do for their travel sports?
Ooh.
Some of these sports where you're traveling every other week, are athletes going to want to go play volleyball at Stanford, which is a volleyball powerhouse? But do you want to go play volleyball where you're having to fly to New Jersey, once a year to go play a match against Rutgers? I'm curious to see how Stanford's lineup of sports is impacted by this move.
Hey, when does Texas beach volleyball start getting points counted? Is that next year?
It'll be next year. So this year was their first year of competition, but they weren't eligible for the postseason.
Right.
And, they had about a 50-50 squad. They were playing with a lot of indoor players this year, right, and they did pretty well, actually. They beat at least one team that made the tournament. But this next year will be the first really full year of competition, a full lineup of beach volleyball players, and they'll be eligible for the postseason.
Brett Wilkinson, thank you so much, doctor. Get back to the hospital, man. Get your real work going. I know this is a passion of yours, and you certainly illuminated some very interesting issues as it relates to the Longhorns. And I agree with you. I don't know that I would be following this unless Texas was winning. We all agree with that.
Winning.
Thanks, Brett. Be good, man.
Thanks so much.
All right, have a good one, man. Brett Wilkinson, good guy. He started doing this just on a whim, Jerry. Started getting interested in it, then started doing spreadsheets behind the scenes. Then he started tweeting about it more, and it's just been a natural progression. And now he's considered the quote-unquote expert on the topic.
Well, somebody's going to be an expert. It's probably a doctor, right?
Well, yes, he's a Dr. Brett Wilkinson. I can see it like it's going to be Jeff Sagarin back in the day, the MIT physicist. That did the Sagarin rankings. But no, seriously appreciate him joining us as well. We got a lot of news and notes to go over today. Some more questions from everyone as well. But Jerry, I want to start with you and have the good folks at Omaha Steaks. Are you ready to talk about those guys?
I am. And I got to tell y'all, for those that missed the beginning of the show, I feel like a well-done steak because I'm sitting in this old press box at Fort Bend Marshall, watching them work out a little bit this morning, seeing Caleb Chester and Isaiah Williams and Noriel Dominguez. But I feel like a well-done steak, and that's why it's a perfect time to have the read here. Father's Day is almost here, guys. Are you struggling to find the perfect gift for the man that has everything? The solution is simple. Give him the unforgettable experience of Omaha Steaks, because a world-class dad for sure deserves a world-class steak. The Father's Day experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to put a smile on the big guy's face with hand-selected gift packages starting at just $99 when you use promo code ONTEXAS, all caps, at checkout. You'll get $10 off your order. With Omaha Steaks, the possibilities are endless. That's endless flavor, that's endless variety, and that's endless value, which we can all attest to that have had Omaha Steaks. Truly, they have perfected more than the steak, and your dad is guaranteed to love every single bite. Pick from a premium proteins like the juicy pork chops, air grilled chicken, and the beefy burgers. You know how good the burgers are when the kids comment about it and say, hey, where's that from? Omaha Steaks. The kids were commenting on the burgers. Time is running out. Don't wait until the last minute. Go to omahasteaks.com and order today with packages starting at just $99. Don't forget that when you use promo code ONTEXAS, all caps, at checkout, you'll get $10 off. Shop for unforgettable gifts that are guaranteed to make Dad's day. Because if there's one thing Omaha Steak knows, it's that dads want steak.
It's a good gift. It really is. My dad appreciates it every year. He loves them.
Hey, Blake, you have the tweet from the new women's golf coach about the new, because I wanted to bring this up since we were just talking about Directors Cup.
Yes, if I can find what I did with it. Give me just a second here. Oh, here we go. Are you talking about the welcome tweet?
Yeah. So Bobby, the new women's golf coach, was announced yesterday. She had a press conference. Look, she said something interesting. I mean, she won a national championship. By the way, her story is pretty cool. She was a teammate of Lorena Ochoa, one of the all-time greats at Arizona. And those that don't follow golf and aren't a golf nerd like me, Annika Sorenstam, Lorena Ochoa both came out of Arizona, two of the very best LPGA players of their generation, the best and maybe even the second best, some would argue. But Laura Ianello comes to Texas. As she mentioned, Texas hasn't won a national title in women's golf, and she's here to do it. So we're just talking about Directors Cup, and she said she recruited a lot of the players that are at Texas, so she has familiarity with them. But it was interesting because when you leave your alma mater, Bobby, after playing there, coaching there 17 years, winning a national championship, the only way you're leaving there is if you feel like you're coming to the best athletic program in America.
Absolutely. She is so it's very interesting. She is the sister-in-law of one of my friends that I grew up with in this business in football recruiting. Rob Ianello is the general manager of the Kansas Jayhawks. Really good guy, used to recruit Houston. It was Rob Ianello at Arizona when he was the recruiting coordinator at Arizona versus Mac Brown for Corey Redding, for example, back in the day. A lot of people don't remember that, but Rob was part of that whole Desert Swarm thing in Arizona with Dick Tomey and Dwayne Aquina. Here's Laura there, but they are brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and they have long time roots in the state of Arizona, to your point, Jerry. And so for her to make the move to Texas speaks volumes about what she thinks she needs to do to reach the mountaintop again in women's golf. I think that's a good point to make, because you don't just leave your alma mater. You don't leave a place you've been for that long, where you're probably well compensated.
They just built her a new facility. She had just moved into the new office, guys. They had just built her a new facility, and she still took the Texas job.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, Jerry, back to recruiting a little bit. And I was looking at this. Some people in the chat were, they're worried a little bit about DB recruiting and DL recruiting. And they asked, one of the questions was, do you feel that there's a sense of concern there at this point? I don't sense that at all at defensive back right now. Like none. I just don't. I think Nathan Tillman ran a 10-700 meter in 6 foot 185. Yeah. This JJ Haney at defensive tackle, he's got offers from Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State and Oregon. That's not reaching late in the game. What do you think of those two spots? I mean, do you think it's not, we know it's not time to ring the alarm bell, but do you think there's reason that there should be hyper focus on those right now from a Texas fan's mindset as much as anything?
No, I think at D-line, Texas is in on the right guys. Is how many of those guys can you win out for? I mean, they're in on some of the very best guys in the country. Now, they're all difficult recruitments. The problem with D-line recruiting for Texas right now, and even if you want to sprinkle in A&M in this conversation, the state's not producing a lot of those no-brainer type guys. So you're going out nationally, and now you're in the SEC, you're working east. Now, Johnny Nansen helps because he can get you the California kids to campus, right? And Texas has more kids coming to campus, one of those by being Josiah Sharma at Folsom. And without Johnny Nansen's hire, that's not happening. Texas was recruiting SoCal, other than Kyle Flood recruiting John Mills and San Fran. D-line, the right guys are coming in. Now it's just question is how many of those are you going to win? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. DB recruiting, what's interesting there is, like Aiden Anding was a spring riser. I think he's better than a lot of guys that are ranked high, but that doesn't mean I'm right. That doesn't mean he will be. He's got to go get it done. But look, he came on in the spring and he immediately jumped guys in the state on the board for Texas. So there's been some movement there. But again, I think Texas is on the right guys. The question is, how many are they going to win? Like, I think Cade Phillips, look, I put the news out yesterday. He canceled A&M. It's Texas or LSU. Corey Raymond's selling corner. I think there's a couple of people in the family that love the idea of Texas. We'll see where it goes. I think Cade Phillips is a tremendous prospect. I think he's more of a safety long-term. I think that's where things are going to go. But I think Texas is in on a lot. Like Nathan Tillman, I agree with you, Bobby. I mean, look, it's a guy that was, I told the story when I was at Mansfield Timberview last season, early in the season, to see Dylan Battle, a D lineman. I asked who's your best young guys and who's coming on, and they were like, our junior safety Nathan Tillman's really coming on, and he was an SMU commit at the time. And look, he ended up running 10.7 at 185 this spring. I talked with Nathan a couple of days ago. He's scheduled to be at Utah this weekend. We'll see. He's got Baylor on the 14th through 16th. He's got TCU on the 21st through 23rd. Obviously, Texas is looking to bump one of those and get him on campus. But I think that's a good spring evaluation. That's why you go out and do it. So I think they're in on the right guys specifically at D-line. It's just how many they're going to win. On DB recruiting, look, I'm watching Caleb Chester run out of the corner of my peripheral. I still have a little peripheral at this age. I think he's better. I think he's better than the recruiting rankings suggest because, man, when you talk to him, if you haven't seen that interview on Texas Football, he's a football junkie. He's a film junkie. There's a photo I sent to Blake. This is what they do in the summer. You're out getting a little conditioning in, guys. It's muggy this morning. But I think Caleb Chester's a really good prospect at corner nickel. So I think they're on the right guys. Now, would you love to get back in on a Devin Sanchez as the season moves along? Of course. I mean, he still picks up the phone when Texas calls. Texas recruits through the whistle. They're not going to give up on guys. Would you love for something to happen with Devin Sanchez down the line? Sure. I think Texas is in on some really talented players. The question now is how many are they going to close?
Good stuff. I just feel like my piece on it, Jerry, is we're still too early to tell, but I do believe that fans are not wrong to have some hyper focus,
right,
especially on the defensive front. Because frankly, while Bo Davis seems to be doing really well at LSU, he didn't necessarily recruit lights out at Texas for whatever reason. For whatever reason. He got some pieces like Alex January and Sadir Mitchell, but he didn't get the numbers, right? He didn't get the numbers. Dre Bledsoe, another one that I think was highly recruited. But my point being, I think that I don't feel that way about the secondary at all. I understand the consternation, I guess, along the defensive front because it is a sore thumb a little bit, right? I mean, it's the toenail that is dragging, you know. So I worry. I get that. I don't understand the secondary piece that much, though, at all. Texas has done well there the last couple of years, in my opinion. Last year in particular.
We got a couple of super chats to get to, but before we get to those, earlier I said we are 87 days away from kickoff. So with that in mind, who stands out in your mind that wore the number 87? Just curious.
For the Longhorns?
Yes.
I think there's only one that deserves mention. And I'm going back in my days, but this is a guy that I think was a high draft pick and was probably the best tight end at Texas for a generation. His name's Lawrence Sampleton. I think he went to Seguin High School, same high school as I think Russell Erksleben, by the way, if you remember that name. But Lawrence was a tremendous player in his day. First or second round pick of the Jets, I want to say, guys. But held all the tight end records until John Mackovic came in, to be honest with you. And when John Mackovic came in, he started throwing to the tight end more. But Sampleton was a elite player. Some people in this chat will probably be nodding their heads. Is there another 87 out there that we would say is in that category?
I was just way back, but Hub Bechtel is
okay. Yeah, I don't.
Pat Fitzgerald was a pretty good 80. Didn't he wear 87?
I thought he was 82.
He may have been. I think
or 81. 81.
Yeah, Lavelle Pinkney was 82. I'd have to think back on the 87s, man. That's a tough one for me. I can't think of anybody.
I love Garrett Gray, but it's not Garrett Gray. So it's the guy that played in the NFL.
Oh, the 49ers head coach.
Yeah.
Oh, Kyle Shanahan.
He's the best coach to ever win 87 at Texas.
Yeah.
And by the way, I was just reading, Sampleton currently serves on the board of directors at the Secondary School Admission Testing Board at Prairie View A&M. That's what he's up to now. So
somebody asked, was one of the Cash brothers 87? I don't remember that. I have to look back on check photos.
They were 19 and 11.
Okay. Jeff Swaim, I think he was 86 or 87. Could have been.
No.
All right.
Well, as I said, we have a couple of super chats that we need to knock out, guys. Kind of going back to recruiting here for a moment. Then we'll get to some team stuff. Daniel Kinnaman, thank you, Daniel. He says, would Texas circle back to Landon Rink, the kid committed to Texas A&M, who's a UT legacy? Do y'all see that happening?
I don't see that happening now. I just don't see that happening. I think if Texas felt like that was one of their guys with it being a legacy recruit, they wouldn't have let that go A&M's way the first time. I think just size wise, I just think they're looking for some bigger frames.
And then our
I
other
agree with Jerry.
chat. No, go ahead.
I said I agree with Jerry 100% on that.
And by the way, I think Landon Rink has a great motor. So if he outperforms his rankings or whatever, it wouldn't be a shock.
And then our other super chat, guys, comes from someone no stranger to super chats. Jack, thank you as always. He says, Jerry, we get Fasusi. How does that affect the turn time recruitment?
Yeah. To be determined, I think, is the best thing I could say. Does it kill it? I don't think so. Does it make the recruiting job more difficult? Yeah, both guys see themselves as left tackles. I think turn time can be a right tackle as well. So I think it's to be determined on that. It definitely makes it not as fluid of a recruitment, maybe not as a straight line drive for Texas, because I do think Texas is a pretty good spot for turn time as of today. But we'll see where it goes if Texas lands Fasusi.
And then we'll do one other recruiting question.
By the way, I want to say something that David Earl said, because I want to echo this. No, Turntime's not afraid of competition. That dude competes everywhere. And that's not what I'd be saying if he ended up somewhere other than Texas. It'd just be, is there somewhere an easier path to the field at left tackle, or a more, not easier, because that says you're scared of competition. He's not scared of competition. It's just Bobby, what's the quickest path, maybe?
Yeah, my take on that is you can't pass on somebody you think's a future NFL tackle or somebody that's 2 years down the line. I mean, look, if Texas did that with Garrett Gilbert and Andrew Luck,
yes.
Okay, and if they would have tried to do it for Tommy Brockemeyer, let's just put that out there, because he was ranked that highly, and then he gets injured and then never really does much in college. You just don't know what can happen in football. You do not pass up on guys that you think are going to be in the NFL because of a guy 1 year further down the line. I would be shocked if people did that.
Hey, Blake, can I do a little recruiting speed dating real quick?
Get after it.
All right. Thank you. Kim says, ask this: how many OVs may Texas get during football season? Good question. A kid like Dallas Wilson's coming in unofficially today. The D lineman from Rancho Margarita that was offered yesterday is going to be a fall decision. He doesn't even have his NCAA ID tag yet to make official visits. And he's going back to Germany for 10 days to see his family coming up next week. So Georgia and Oregon are trying to get him in on the 21st through 23rd when he comes back. But he said yesterday, fall decision for him. So I think you can see two or three guys for sure. And if there's somebody whose recruitment opens up, like Xavier Filsaime, then obviously remember, coaching carousel, we haven't even started talking about it yet. That's always going to affect recruiting. Here's can you please tell us some of the reasons Jonah Williams, it seems that UT on the back burner? Look, I think there's people that recruiting Jonah also have some hesitation over the baseball thing. I mean, how many guys legitimately are doing both effectively well? So I think it's a two-way street with some of the schools recruiting him. Very talented player, wants to be a safety. It'll be tough for him to stay that size, but we'll see down the line and see if he goes Major League Baseball or not, if he has a great summer and gets drafted high enough. I think he's talking about Dallas Wilson. And you may be an Ohio State fan. I think if that's the case now, I don't think that's what's going on. So your 4 must-win recruitments for Sark this summer, I think holding on to, I think DeCorian Moore's number 1. I think Brandon Brown, winning out for DeCorian Moore's number 1. I think holding on to Brandon Brown is very high on my list. That's 2. I think because of, where guys are ranked and how the recruitment is. Michael Fasusi's a big recruitment for Texas, because if he doesn't go to Texas, he's probably going to A&M. And if by chance he doesn't go to A&M, he's going to Oklahoma. So a 5-star ranked offensive tackle in DFW is going to either Texas A&M, or Oklahoma. That in itself makes it a huge recruitment for the Longhorns. You don't want A&M grabbing that momentum because they have A&M has 3 offensive tackles coming in this weekend. They're hoping to get 2 of them. That is Michael Fasusi, Ty Haywood, Lamont Rogers, who will also visit Texas next weekend. So you want to try to keep A&M from grabbing some of that offensive line momentum in state. That's just the reality of recruiting. And then pick your next guy. I mean, at that point, that's kind of personal preference for you guys. I mean, a lot of people are probably say, hey, who's the number 2 D lineman? I mean, who is that guy? Is it Myron Charles? Is it Josiah Sharma? Is it Kevin Wynn? Is it Zion Williams? Zion Williams will probably be a big one for people, because if he doesn't go to Texas, he's going to LSU. Now, he is visiting A&M this weekend, but I still think it'd be Texas or LSU. So some people might just pick that because of who he is, the where he is, and who the battle is. So I mean, I think there's three guys off the top of my head.
I got two guys for you, Jerry, if you don't mind me interrupting. Riley Pettijohn and Cade Phillips.
Yeah.
I think those two guys are elite prospects.
Yeah.
So I think Josiah Sharma, elite prospect. When you start talking about these guys, the things that they have in common are you're talking about elite prospects, period. And so I don't think it's just four. I think anybody that you think is better than a 50-50 shot to end up in the NFL in 3 to 4 years are the guys that I'm talking about. I mean, because those are the ones that will move the needle for Texas. Texas, and I want to, I'll start a little bit of a soapbox. But what moves the needle for Texas these days is not just good players. It's more Anthony Hills, Ryan Wingos, Arch Mannings, those type of guys, Xavier Worthies. They move the needle. Good players they continue the trend of Texas moving upwards, but the guys that are difference makers are what moves the needle for Texas. So when Jerry starts talking about DeCorian Moore, that's a difference maker. Brandon Brown, potential difference maker. Fasusi, potential difference maker at a left tackle. Cade Phillips, I have to tell you, guy that long jumps out the sand pit and is 6'1", 6'2", and can run at safety is one of those guys. You just talk about that. Riley Pettijohn, maybe he and Bo Barnes, the two best linebackers from Texas since Anthony Hill, in my opinion. So there are guys out there that are like that, in my opinion. I think the tight end from Decaney is in that category.
He's a hell of an athlete.
Yeah, Nick Townsend. And we don't talk about
By the way, he'll be at Alabama this weekend, so that's the competition for Nick Townsend.
Hey, Jerry, going back to speed dating stuff, comment on Keelan Russell, the quarterback out of Duncanville, committing to Alabama, and whether or not that will have an impact on DeCorian Moore or others potentially looking at Alabama instead of Texas.
Yeah, I don't go down that path right now. I think if he goes on and Kalen DeBoer has a very successful first year, I think Keelan Russell's a tremendous player. I've been saying that since I saw him in person last spring at Duncanville. I thought he was vastly underrated at that point in time. He's a very good prospect. I saw somebody send a super chat that said Alabama fans are convinced they just got Vince Young. That's where expectations they'll have a hard time meeting reality because Keelan Russell's very good. VY no. Doesn't mean he can't be a better passer, natural passer, because he's very talented at that. But Keelan Russell, very good wide receiver. I mean, I don't see it. I mean, we'll see what happens with DeCorian Moore. He's at LSU this weekend. Texas next weekend. It's scheduled to be at Oregon the 21st through 23rd. I don't think DeCorian Moore is going anywhere, including Texas. And I know some Texas fans, Archman? I don't think DeCorian Moore is chasing a quarterback anywhere. I think DeCorian Moore is if you've been around DeCorian Moore, he, as good as you think he is on Huddle, he knows he's that good. I mean, I don't think. I mean, look, I think that guy says, hey, if I go to Ohio State, that quarterback's going to be better because I'm there. I mean, no offense to anybody, no offense to quarterbacks out there. Does it help if you have a really good quarterback room? Yeah. Is it going to be a difference maker in a certain recruitment for him? I don't think it is. I just think he's a different level dude. All right, Bonefish had one here. 68. Hey, Jerry, any concern that French signed NIL deal with American Eagle, which all Ohio State receivers do? The issue there is unless he makes a big change, he's committing in August, late August, and that's going to be one of the schools he officially visits unless a change happens. Because when I was in Jacksonville, it felt like Ohio State wasn't going to be the one at that time. So we'll see if something changes there. But he also signed an NIL deal with GLD, a jewelry maker that a lot of athletes, hip hop, R&B people, they wear those. That company's out of Pittsburgh, but they live in Miami. So you could say the same for Miami with that. But again, when we talk about look, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer at all, because Texas is going to get a lot of really good players in this class. I think they're going to knock on the door for a fourth straight top 5 class, or have a top 5 class. But that's the crazy thing with NIL nowadays, when everybody's like, oh, all 3 5-star receivers are going to end up at Texas. Well, the NIL process hasn't even started until these visits start taking place. And now that the legislation comes down in Florida. Could that be a game changer for the in-state schools with some of these kids in the next few years? We'll see. They're certainly going to make it try to be, if they're doing their job well. So we'll see on that. Stubbs 82. I didn't want French and Long are going to be Longhorn. Who's the third? It's not going to be Moore. I like when you bet your mortgage payments on it. Those are my favorite ones. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of family that wants him in Austin. We'll see. But I've always said this to Corey, and he's got to decide where he wants to be. Here's a good one, I think. David Keith Williams. It seems UT is recruiting more top-tier D tackles. Kevin Wynn and Myron Charles are the most recent DTs UT is focused on. How would you compare Charles to the top 25 D tackle recruits? I like Myron Charles' frame, where he's at now, where he's going to be. He's going to be 6'4", 315, 320. You watch the tape there. There's still technique things. He doesn't even maximize his stance, so he's quick and explosive for not even being as strong as he'll be. Won't have the hand placement he'll have in a couple of years, and that technique as far as that get off and creating that real ability to be a disruptor. So I think Myron Charles is, if you may line up at the top 15 D tackle prospects in the country, I'm sure he's right there in it. He's certainly being recruited that way. Georgia with his spring game. LSU made a run down there. A couple others did. Auburn as well. I think Penn State even tried to get in on him at some point. So Myron Charles is right there. How would you rank them all? I mean, that's going to be between the various people and what they prefer. But I think he's one of the top 15 D tackles in the country. Vegas asks about Javian Hilson. That's the edge out of Coco's coming in this weekend, scheduled to be in this weekend. He's committed to FSU. He's never been on campus at Texas. I think it's a long shot. But look, that's what we like about Steve Sarkisian and this staff, is they're going to take as many shots on goal as they can with the guys they think are really good players. Just like Dallas Wilson scheduled to visit today, the receiver out of Tampa Tech. I love that Sark's getting as many of these guys on campus as he can. Take as many shots on goal as you can. You never know what happens, Bobby.
Find the guys that move the needle and don't come off of them. That's what he does. He thinks that guy moves the needle. He's not going to come off of him. And that includes Dallas Wilson, who they don't have an official visit for, Jerry.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. We need to do that, but got a couple more. Got about 10, 15 more minutes here before we get going, but I want to say thank you to Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, motorcycle accident, ATV injury even, guys, and think you might be due compensation because of the negligence of some third party, make sure you reach out to Adam and his law firm at loweylawfirm.com. They've been helping injured Texans for decades. Again, that's loweylawfirm.com. Adam Lowy and his firm sponsoring Coffee and Football this morning. We appreciate him very, very much.
I want to answer this on the Keelan Russell thing.
Oh, SMU getting don't forget, we have people listening on podcast. SMU, the topic that came from the audience is SMU getting fleeced in recruiting.
Well, look, you give them credit for early evaluations that were really strong, right? And I think the one thing with SMU is, we're moving to a Power 4 conference. We're gonna get these guys. It's still hard because there was a significant NIL package for Keelan Russell to stay at SMU. Didn't matter. Significantly more, from what I hear, than Alabama. Didn't matter. I mean, look, SMU is there. I think they did a good job getting an ACC. I think they're going to win more recruiting battles in DFW. I think that a big part of recruiting for them as well is being in position to get some really talented bounce backs that come back to the area after they transfer from a bigger school. I mean, maybe more of the blue blood schools. We saw it with Billy Walton. Should be a really good player for SMU. Be in position to get those guys, recruit those guys, have great relationships. And I know people, SMU fans, that's not what we're in it for. Oh, that's fine. But let's talk about reality. I mean, you're going to get some good players. I think that staff, Rhett Lashley, his staff do a very good job of evaluating early and getting on guys in Dallas. getting on them, getting them committed is one thing. Holding on to them when the blue bloods come in is two totally different things. And that's years down the line for SMU. I mean, if Kalen DeBoer at Alabama is your competition for Keelan Russell with the season Michael Penix just had and what Kalen DeBoer did at Washington, good luck. I mean, that's I don't care what your NIL package is, you're not going to win that battle.
Yeah, NIL is a piece of the puzzle. It's not the sole predictor of everything. I mean, that's where everybody's money is the same color. It's all green, right? Yeah. And so they're going to pick where they think they fit the best long term. And a place, not only has Kalen DeBoer shown that he can manage elite quarterbacks in Michael Penix, right? He's also at a school now that is tradition rich in elite football compared to that of SMU. SMU has been a relative non-factor, even though they've done okay in the last 10 years or so on the field. They've been a relative non-factor in football nationally for 30 years, ever since or maybe 35, 40, since the death penalty, right? And so they've got to build it back up. I did notice this though, and you said that you said something that was very interesting to me, Jerry. You said SMU did a nice job getting into the ACC. Completely and 100% agree. It gave that whole program a lifeline to the future, et cetera. I'm sitting here looking at it. Houston, SMU, and TCU all now back in what you would consider major conferences. Now, they're not in the SEC or the Big Ten. They don't deserve to be in those big conferences. But still, the leaders of those universities, I think, have done a nice job getting themselves back in play on a major college level after being left out originally of the Big 12.
Hey, guys. Well, Texas has just posted a summer workout video, so I'm going to share that with folks here. And no audio because there's music in the background, but we will show the video.
Who could name every player in the video?
Not me.
That was Niblet. We've seen Savea, Trey Wisner. We saw Quinn. We saw.
I'll roll it back one more time for you.
All right.
There's Quinn.
Who can name them all? Well, not all. The ones they're focused on. All right. Jake Majors made it. Niblet looks fast in everything he does, by the way. There's Savea. If you look fast running around trash cans, you're fast.
So let's take some team-related questions before we get out of here. And we're going to start with this one from Joe. Have you guys heard anything on Sadir Mitchell? Did he come in ready for summer workouts?
I've not heard enough about Sadir yet to say one way or the other. That's a great question, Joe, and it has been posed. I'm waiting for a response. Great question.
And while we're talking about,
by the way, a little something here. Was told earlier that Jermaine Lola's on campus and looks good.
Okay, good stuff. So he hasn't posted much on social media. We haven't he's the only jersey number, Jerry, that we haven't figured out of all the newcomers because he doesn't do anything on social media.
Right.
But it's good to hear that he's on campus and doing well.
We'll go back to a few team questions here. Patrick Smith, can we move Connor Stroh to defensive tackle? He wouldn't be moved in the run game as a defensive tackle, which would be great facing Michigan and the SEC.
Do you have the quickness for that, Jerry? Because that's where I think I don't think he's very quick.
I think he's an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
I think the only offensive lineman that if you said, all right, man, you have to move the defense. This is high school football. We got to have you is DJ Campbell.
That's what I was going to say.
Because he's played it as well. And he has that quickness. He's got that twitch of an interior D lineman that you have to have that Byron Murphy had.
Long arms too.
Yeah.
For his frame. Long arms.
And then our next question here actually comes from James Henson. And James says, Jerry and Bobby, do y'all think that Neto will start at left guard sometime this season, or does he remain the primary backup? Look on.
Boy, I wish you guys could read our internal chats between me, Jerry, and CJ on this topic. We We don't know. It's a fair answer. We think it's very possible. Heck, we think it's possible Cole Hudson starts at left guard over Hayden Connor. But Hayden Connor, and do not, this is not, he's like the cockroach you can't kill through a nuclear attack, right? You've wanted to replace him for 3 years now, and he ain't letting you, right? So will this year be the year? I don't know.
I think what's interesting is NATO run blocking best. Pass blocking, Hayden Connor, its most experienced, Cole Hudson may be best, right? So that's the interesting twist is they have different strengths right now. Again, Neto's still a young lineman in terms of that pass pro development. I actually talked with his former trainer about that a couple of weeks ago, and that he was way ahead as a run blocker versus a pass blocker leaving high school football. So that development process, we always say, is an add water instant player. I'm stealing a line from Will Muschamp. I give him credit on that. It's not add water instant player here. And part of that development is continuing to be more comfortable in pass pro as he matures as a player, where Hayden Connor has a ton of experience in that regard. Cole Hudson's probably the best pass blocker of the three, but he's fought injury as well.
And then our last question for today, fellas. Kelly Horns Up says, which freshman do you think will make the rotation? Wingo, Simmons. Are there any others?
Talked about this a little bit last night on live stream. I think Wingo and Simmons are definitely possibilities. I think that either Xavier Filsaime or Jordan Johnson-Rebel have a chance at safety if one of the safeties doesn't really come through the way that you want it. I think that one of the freshman corners has a chance. Beyond that, the one that I really look to, if there's any sort of injury, is Jordan Washington. I feel like Jordan has a little something extra to him that may put him ahead of Spencer Shannon and Will Randall at some point in time this year. And so if there's an injury at one of those tight end spots, is he the guy that they lean on later in the year as opposed to Juan Davis, right? Who's got experience on him, but not the size. Alex January is a potential, but now that they took 3 guys in the portal, I don't know that they'll go there. We'll see. We'll see.
I need to bring up a question because I was not correct on something I reported yesterday, and I want to correct this for the record. And it just brought up, I made me thought about it, a comparison between Lavelle Pinckney and Michael Terry. But I said yesterday that Nebraska wasn't really in it for Michael Terry. I was incorrect. I made a second call on that. Nebraska is very much in play for Michael Terry. Oregon's faded. So Nebraska headed into the Texas visit this weekend and A&M visit the following weekend. Nebraska very much in the hunt, has a shot at Michael Terry. So I want to correct what I said yesterday. That was incorrect based on somebody I talked to. Now I talked to another person, which I 100% think is right after doing a little background on it. Nebraska very much involved with Michael Terry.
Jerry, who are the guys coming in? Give people a sense of that, because that's what we're going to be following here coming up on ontexasfootball.com when we're off the air here. We got a bunch of stuff going on with news kind of traveling fast right now on this visit weekend.
Yeah, so you have Caleb Edwards, that tight end out of El Dorado Hills, Oak Ridge in California. He goes from Texas to Auburn to Alabama. So, hey, that's 3 hellacious visits in a row for him. Congrats on that. You have the 2 D linemen we talked about, interior guys, Josiah Sharma, Myron Charles. You have edge, Javion Hilson. You have corner, Caleb Chester coming in. We're not sure what's going on with Dorian Brew. Then we have Michael Terry. Dorian Brew looks like it's going to be at USC this week, and we're trying to I still haven't got anything back on that. I'm hoping to get something back. It doesn't look like before the end of the show on if Dorian Brew just bumped back his visit to Texas, or is he going to try to midweek to Texas, which wouldn't be a good sign for Texas. By the way, so we have the 7 visits with Brew not likely to be in, so 6 officials this weekend, barring a change. Dallas Wilson, ranked one of the highest 4-star receivers in the country. I think may end up a 5-star. if for those that care about that. He's unofficial today. Then June 12th, you have Dejon Lee, the 4-star corner out of Southern California, who's Texas is coming from behind in that and has a lot of work to do. But he's also scheduled to be in the only midweek official visitor right now scheduled for Texas.
Good stuff for sure. Okay, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. We want to thank them along with Omaha Steaks for sponsoring. Thank you all for tuning in. The great questions, the super chats. To continue the conversation, be sure to head on over to ontexasfootball.com. Remember, unfortunately, we cannot be on here 24/7. So that way you get your Texas fix. If you haven't signed up already and you're interested in doing so, you can use promo code OTFOG $39.95 for 1 year at ontexasfootball.com using promo code OTFOG. So be sure to check that out. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We would appreciate it. Ring the bell so you're notified anytime that we go live or post a video. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Hook.